Hi, welcome everybody to today's webinar on improving Revit data quality and control with Naviate architecture. We're just 2 minutes after the webinar start time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. This will be recorded, so if anyone is late or wasn't able to join, you will have access to the webinar after the fact as well. I would also like to add that there will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So if you do have any questions during the webinar, please add them in the GoToWebinar questions, and I'll get to answering them at the end of the webinar. Okay, so let's get started by introducing myself. My name is Sheer Ehrlich, and I'll be your presenter on today's webinar. I am the Naviate Accelerate product owner, and I do have a background in architecture. I studied architecture at Pratt Institute, and I also worked for many years at different architectural manager. And when I was working there, I definitely got frustrated with, the mundane tasks in Revit and began to kind of learn and teach myself Dynamo to automate some of these tasks before then coming and joining the Naviate product development team so that I could help to create products to help you work smarter. So like I do in all my Naviate webinars, I do like to start with a little bit of an overview for anyone who is new to Naviate or this is the first time you're seeing anything about Naviate. I like to answer the what is Naviate exactly. So with Naviate, we are really an entire product line for all trades, one team that you can work with, a solution to streamline all of your workflows, and one ecosystem for your Autodesk products. We do have Naviate products for Revit, for BIM 360 and the Autodesk Construction Cloud, as well as for Civil 3D. So we're more than just one Naviate product, but we're an entire portfolio of products. And within our Naviate for Revit product line, we have Naviate Accelerate, Architecture, Structure, MEP, Site and Landscaping, Fabrication, Cloud Manager, and much more. Like I said, this is Naviate for Revit. We have products for all trades, and we are a suite of products developed by AC professionals like myself for AEC professionals like you. Today, we're going to focus on Naviate architecture as well as Accelerate. And for those of you who do not know, when you do purchase Naviate architecture, Accelerate comes for free with it. Naviate Accelerate is our product for all. So it has some of the features that are for data management, for project setup, for documentation, things like that. Whereas Naviate architecture has the things specific for architects and to support architectural workflows. And when you purchase Naviate Architecture, you get both of them. And in today's webinar, I'm going to show you features in both Naviate Architecture and Naviate Accelerate. And with Naviate for Revit, we are trying to holistically have commands and features that encompass the entire project lifecycle, from project setup to data management, modeling, and document management. And this webinar series, or within this webinar series, each webinar is targeting each one of these different parts of the project lifecycle. Last month, if you did attend, we had a webinar focused on using Naviate for project setup. This one is going to be focused on data management. Next, we'll look at modeling and then document management. So today we're looking at utilizing Naviate architecture for data management. And with that, I'm going to focus on 4 different workflows. First, we're going to look at batch editing and visualizing data and using Naviate Accelerate. Then we're going to look at renumbering, both with renumbering generic elements and then focusing on just managing our door numbers. Then we're going to look at some pulling data and pushing it to parameters within our rooms and our walls that Revit just doesn't give us access to currently. And lastly, we're going to switch from data management to model management, looking at having our model cleaned up and making sure that all the warnings are checked and that also our CAD files are organized, our CAD links and imports. So we're going to start with batch editing data and visualizing data. So within Naviate Accelerate, we're able to really edit data with the first feature I'm going to show is the edit parameters feature. Now, this feature is great because it brings some of our favorite Excel functionality directly to Revit to batch edit data. And we can do that one of two ways, either by editing an entire category or a pre-created Revit schedule. So the first thing I'm going to do is edit a category, and I can select which parameters I want to edit. Then I can use these data grids to filter the headers to easily find the elements that I want to edit. I can right click within that value and do a find and replace, just like you would in, let's say, Excel. So this really makes editing data so much faster and easier. Just like that, I'm able to update all of my view names really seamlessly. Next, we're going to look at editing that pre-created Revit schedule. And I can pick from any schedule that I already have created in my Revit project. And I can do the same thing where I can use the headers to organize my data. Now, this isn't going to reorganize the original schedule, which is great. It's just going to do this in this feature. Then I can quickly edit the data for, let's say, one particular room type with my offices and use my fill copy to copy that data across all of those values. So like I said, this is going to bring some of our favorite Excel functionality, fill copy, fill increment. And what we're going to do here, which is is a fill custom increment. So I can change all of the values and, for example, renumber these rooms using my fill custom increment. This is going to allow me to specify exactly which part of this number is going to be incremented. And just like that, I'm able to increment all of those values, batch editing data with my edit parameter values feature. And speaking of Revit schedules, as most of you know, you can use your Revit schedule to calculate values. So if you don't have a parameter, you can use the Revit schedule to select from existing parameters and calculate new values. In this example, I want to get my ceiling height. Now, Revit already gives me the area and the volume by these built-in parameters, but I can use that to simply calculate the ceiling height. Now, for those of you who know, this now only exists in my schedule. If I want to have it in my actual elements or be able to tag it, I can't. But Naviate Accelerate has this transfer calculated values feature. It allows me to see all of the calculated values across all the schedules in my project and select a destination parameter to push that value to. So here I can get that calculated value and actually push it to a parameter in my rooms so I can then tag it or have it in my rooms as a parameter. And now this is really great to have as a one-time push, but with Naviate Accelerate, we have this amazing update project feature, which allows us to automate how often we're going to be updating that data or running this command to push that data. Now, I can schedule this to be done every time I save, select to print, select to export, or sync the model. I can also set it to run manually. So if I just hit that update project, it'll run those as well. Now, this is really going to come in handy when you're collaborating with other people in the model, or if you just don't want to have to think and worry about these values being accurate and precise. While I can make model changes to my model, or my team is going to make model changes, I, as the BIM manager, can set up my update project to select which parameters will run automatically so that I don't have to worry about it. I can make my model changes, and I know every time I save the model or one of my project team members save the model, the data is going to be updated and is going to be accurate to those design changes. So there we go. We've saved the model. We can see that those ceiling heights were updated just like that. So now that we've edited some data, let's look at visualizing that data. Architects, you know, we are visual people, and this color elements feature really allows me to visualize the data within my project. Just like with those ceilings, again, we can set any instance or type parameter for a category, and it will colorize based off of the values that already exist. And we can even push that color to any view template, and it's going to create filters and add it to the template so that I can maintain that across all of the views that have that template. Let's look at another example where we're going to colorize our walls. In this example, we're going to look at the fire rating of that wall. So in this case, it is a type parameter. I can simply swap or toggle to that type and find that parameter. It also allows me to colorize if a element has no value. And what's great about this feature is it is a modeless feature, meaning that I can have it open, but I can continue working in the model. So I can use this as a checks and balances to see all of the elements, making sure that they have the correct data and making modifications to that data that will then update the colors. And this is temporary. So unless I did apply it to a template, it's only going to be temporary on this view. So I can do this in a documentation view and know that as soon as I close out of the feature, it's not going to be there. So it really helps me to check my model and make sure that my data is correct. So there we have it. We were able to modify data and visualize data. Next, we're going to look at renumbering. We're going to look at general renumbering and then specifically at renumbering doors, because as architects, doors are some of the most specific things that we have to number in the project. So Naviate Accelerate does have a generic renumbering feature to renumber just about any element within the project, either using a spline or by picking the element on a screen. In this case, we're going to renumber our rooms by the spline that I've previously drawn. So that spline is going to give me that order. Simply pull up the renumbering feature, toggle between which option you want to use, select the category that you're renumbering, and then specify all of the other settings that you need, like which parameter you're renumbering and which start value you're using for that numbering sequence. Once you have all your settings set up, you can simply start either picking on the screen or in this case, picking the spline that was pre-created. What's great about Naviate is it does allow you to swap or reverse the order of that spline if needed, but I'm pretty happy with this order, so I'm going to go ahead and just renumber them. All right, so my new rooms are now numbered correctly in the order that I want. So now we can switch over to renumbering our our doors. And for that, we're gonna switch to Naviate Architecture that has a very specific renumbering feature just for doors, because numbering doors can get pretty complicated depending on how you're numbering them and what you're using to number them. So we have a series of features for doors and for windows, and these work the same, just one is for the door category. And you can see our door UID feature allows us to create a custom concatenation of parameters. We can choose from either door or room parameters, instance or type parameters. So we can really customize it to whatever the project needs. We're going to start with doing something super simple, just having the room number and then a sequential number. And I can add a prefix or suffix, so I can have like a divider. And then I can choose the styling, whether that be alphanumeric or numeric for that sequential number. Once I have all my settings set up, simply select to update and it will renumber every single door in the entire project. So this only takes a few seconds and all my doors are now numbered based off of that setting. But there is a lot of customization that Naviate Architecture allows you to do, because it's never that easy, right? It's never that easy. You can't just press one button and all the doors are numbered. There's a lot of differences in doors. For example, maybe I need to go against that sequential rule because this is an exit door and it needs a different suffix. So I can go ahead and manually make that change for the doors that I need to be different. Another difference could be in the ordering of your sequence in each room. So with those doors that were manually changed, we can use our manage UIDs to actually lock them so that next time we run the command, we aren't going to be modifying the values that we custom changed. So here, this allows us to lock it. So when we run the command again, those won't be modified. Now let's look at reordering our doors. So we also have this ability, a feature called to reorder doors. And this is going to allow you to select the sequence in case Naviate got it wrong the first time. Simply select the doors in that order and it will reorder them. The last thing I want to show you in terms of customization, and there is much more, but just to show you a few examples, is the to and from. So you can see this door is flipped, and instead of numbering it with the to room, which is the default, I want it numbered by the from room. We have a simple parameter that you can just check on that will reverse the room association and allow us to renumber that door with the from room. There is much more customization that you could do, but these are just a few to show you. Now, of course, just like in the previous example, we can automate these door numbers so that I can make changes, design changes, renumber my rooms, add doors, remove doors, make design changes, do everything, and know that it's automatically going to be updated to the correct values whenever I save or sync. That's the beauty of it. And we can see that once I do save, the doors that I didn't want to change stayed the way they were, and the doors that I did need to be renumbered were renumbered. And we can see even on our report that it is letting us know what has changed. And we can see that the doors that I locked stayed with that custom change. The doors that I reordered stayed reordered. And the door that I reversed now has the correct room association to it. So with Naviate Architecture, door numbering is really made easy with our door numbering tools. So we looked at doors and we looked at general data, but let's switch over to rooms and walls. Architects, we really care about a few Revit categories. Probably floors, doors, windows, rooms, and walls are like the main ones. Also, probably roofs. And there are other features to handle those, but right now we're just going to look at some room and wall data. So there are a lot of values that Revit out of the box provides you, like the perimeter, the area, the volume, things like that. But sometimes they aren't exactly what we need to get out of them. So Naviate has features that'll get a few of these parameters accurate. For example, Revit automatically gives you the perimeter, but this doesn't exclude things like doors or openings that are on the perimeter. So if I'm trying to get the total length of, let's say, the base of a room, I can't do that with regular out-of-the-box Revit. But Naviate's wall perimeter feature will get the perimeter of the wall and exclude any of those openings. So that if I do add doors or add openings to my room, it's going to get me the correct perimeter of that. You see our door was 3 feet wide, and it basically, exactly removed 3 feet from that perimeter. We also have a feature to get the areas of the windows and the doors in our rooms. So this is really important to figure out how many openings or what is the area of the openings within each given room. We can do that, simply run that feature, and again, it will give me those values. Now, I do want to note that if I don't have any room selected, it'll run it on all the rooms in my model. If I do have a room selected, it'll only run it on the room that is selected. And just like we saw in the other ones, you'll see that honestly, this update project feature is my favorite. I show it so many times because it is a lifesaver when it comes to managing data. Even with these commands, we can automate how often they are updated. So when that design changes, we can set it up to update automatically. There we go. We can see that now that we've saved the model, our room data gets updated with not just the perimeter, but the door area as well, because we added a door. So those are two of our room data features in Naviate Architecture. Let's look at our wall data features. We have 3 different features: the orientation, wall gross area, and wall height. Let's start with looking at the wall orientation. The wall orientation is a really simple feature, one button click, and it will push the orientation to each wall, a north, south, east, west, or inner value. This is really great, A, to keep a model organized, understanding in which direction that wall is facing for exterior walls, and then if that is an interior wall or not. So this is going to help me to verify all of my wall types. And then let's look at the wall gross area. So like the perimeter, Revit out of the box provides you with the area of the wall. However, this is the net area. I mean, that's great. We want the net area, but Revit doesn't give us any gross area values. So this is based on, excluding the opening. So if I were to delete a window, for example, that value is going to change. But if I'm looking at getting the gross area of that wall, I can only rely on Naviate to do that for me. Again, one button click, it's going to get the gross area for all of our walls and get that value for us. And we can see the difference there within that gross area versus the net area that Revit out of the box provides us. And the last thing that I want to show you with this data is the wall height. So with Revit, the unbounded height is not exactly always accurate, right? So if I were to attach this wall to the roof like I do now, that height doesn't change because it's specific to whatever height I set, not changing with the binding of that wall. But with Naviate's height, it does calculate that and gets me the highest point on that wall right there, so that I can get accurate height values for all of the walls in my project. So that's it. We looked at our room perimeters, our room door and window areas, our wall orientation, wall gross area, and wall height. These are all really simple features, one button click, but does a whole lot and provides us with a lot of information that Revit out of the box just doesn't do. Last workflow I'm going to show you is switching over to model management. We looked at data management, but model management is really important as well because we need to make sure that our models are clean and organized so that they work smoothly and our team is happy, really. Especially for BIM managers like myself, making sure a model stays clean is always a struggle. With Naviate architecture and Accelerate, this makes my life a little bit easier. So Naviate Accelerate has sometimes these hidden toolbars. Like if you click on the Manage Project, you get a whole toolbar to help manage your project. The first one I'm going to show you is our warning handler. This makes it so much easier to manage and fix warnings in the model, way better than the out-of-the-box method. The main thing is that it organizes all your warnings very clearly and easily to help you find them. And it is a modeless dialog so that I can select the different warnings, find the elements that are causing those warnings in my model, leaving the warning handler open and fixing the model at the same time. If you've ever tried to manage warnings in Revit, it is such a pain because you can't have it open and fix the model at the same time. Usually you have to export it out and then use the ID to find the elements, and it's a back and forth thing that's really frustrating. But with Naviate's warning handler, I can easily fix those warnings and get my model cleaned up really easily. Next, we're gonna look at the CAD tracker. So I know we all like to say that we're 100% in Revit all the time, but I know, and you guys know, that that's not always the case. We still use AutoCAD a lot for designing and for detailing and linking or importing those DWGs into the model quite often. Now, the CAD tracker allows us to see all imports and links. And the imports is what's really important because without this, it's really hard to find imported CAD files in the model. This allows me to see them, find them in my project browser, identify where they are, and it is modeless as well, just like the other dialog, so I can work in the model, find those CAD files, identify if they're needed, if they're no longer needed. I can use the CAD tracker to delete them and get my model cleaned up that way. And the last thing I will show you is our project cleanup feature. The project cleanup feature allows us to quickly clean up the model. We do have to save the model before we run the command to make sure that it is up to date. And then we can either do this cleanup and save a copy of it. So like export this model cleaned up out so we can send it to consultants, or clean up the current model that we're in. And then we have lots of options to choose from for cleaning up, like deleting views, sheets, revisions, schedules and reports, removing any Revit links or CAD links or imports, getting rid of area boundary lines, scope boxes, unused view filters, images, unused view templates. And the newest feature that is about to be released in the next release is also the ability to purge unused in this feature. I'm sure all of you know that when you purge unused in Revit out of the box, you have to do it a few times to get it to really purge everything. But with this feature, it's just one click and it does it when you clean up the whole project. So those are 3 of my favorite features to help keep your model cleaned and organized and file size down. All right, so now we looked at all of the data management workflows. There is so much more to show you. And actually, I also want to give you a little sneak peek. So we looked at batch editing and visualizing data in Naviate Accelerate, renumbering elements, specifically managing our door numbers. We looked at getting our room and wall data and model cleanup. But wouldn't you like to see what is coming up in the next release of Naviate 2023.1.4 for data management features? So for those of you who don't know, when Microdesk was acquired by Symmetry, we are also merging our products. We had BIMRX Core and Naviate had Naviate Accelerate. And we're taking all of our favorite functionality from BIMRX Core and putting it into Naviate Accelerate. And that is going to be released in the next release. So you're going to get a little sneak peek right now on what to expect when 2023.1.4 comes out. And so as you can see on my toolbar above, I am showing you the pre-released versions. This is what to expect with the new release of Naviate Accelerate with some of our core features added to it. So I'll show you just a few four data management features from core that is new to Naviate Accelerate that you will now be able to use. So we looked at running find and replace within the edit parameters feature, but now we can do a find and replace on a selection of elements. First, I'm going to use my live selection Naviate Accelerate feature. This already existed. One of my favorite features to use to select all the rooms in my project so that I can run a find and replace on them. This will allow me to specify any instance parameter and do a find and replace for that value. Now you could select multiple categories to run this on, and in that case, it'll only show you the common instance parameters. And I can select from any parameter that, or any value that already exists in the parameter, and then specify the new value, and it will simply run that find and replace on that. There we go. So now that we looked at modifying data, let's look at managing some of our parameters. The Advanced Parameter Manager is a really powerful feature to help manage shared parameters in your project. The one thing I really love to use it for is to batch create shared parameters. We can do that one of a few ways, either batch creating it from a shared parameter file or even from a linked Revit model. I can find all of the parameters that I want to bring into my current project. I can even batch edit what category they're going to be added to and some other information about these parameters. And then when I'm ready and I've modified how they're going to be added, simply select them and create them in my project. I can even choose, instead of doing it in my current project, to add it to families. And just like that, we can see from those symbols that it was now added to my current project. We can also do a few other things in the Advanced Parameter Manager, like a duplicate diagnosis and creating or deleting parameters. So now that we looked at parameters in our project and editing them, I also want to show you 2 features that allow us to link Excel files into our project, because as we know, a lot of times our consultants and project team members have data in Excel. The imprint feature will allow us to actually work with Excel, Word, or PDF files and will allow us to link it into our project by creating an image of that document. So we can see that image is placed on our active view or sheet. In this case, it is a sheet that I can then move to where I need it to be. Like I said, this is a link back to the original document. I can auto update, which will automatically update the file if it's modified anytime I open the Revit model or open the imprint feature. Next is our create table feature. This will allow us to convert an Excel table to either a dummy Revit schedule or a Revit drafting view as lines, text, and filled regions. This is really great for bringing in Excel tables into our Revit project. And this is also a link. So it is linked back to the original document. So if I make changes to the original Excel file, I can update it back into my Revit model so that Revit is the source of truth. And there we have it. That's a sneak preview of some of the new features in Naviate Accelerate that you're going to see in the next release. So there is so much more in Naviate Accelerate and architecture that I, of course, didn't show you today that has to do with data management, but also so much more for project setup, modeling, and documentation. So definitely check it out, try them out, and see which features work best for your company and your workflows. This is, like I mentioned, part of an entire webinar series of Naviate Architecture. Last month, we did look at project setup, and if you missed that, you can check out that webinar on demand and on our YouTube channel. Today, we looked at data management, and next, we're going to look at using Naviate Architecture and Accelerate for modeling our favorite architectural elements. And lastly, we will get to using Naviate Architecture for document management. I do want to always highlight that with Naviate, we are really more than just a plugin or a product, but we are an entire community. So with Naviate, you do have access to your own license portal, our blog, the ideation portal, our help desk, our e-learning platform, and our e-store. And that's because we don't want to just create products for you, but we want to work with you. And remember, at the end of the day, our goal is to help all of you work smarter. So with the Symmetry License Portal, you can manage all your Naviate licenses. You can follow the Naviate blog for tips and workflows for your Naviate solutions. In the Ideation Portal, you can add your ideas, see others' ideas, because we want Naviate to be for users by users. Connect and interact with other Naviate users in the Naviate community. At our help desk, you can see product instructional videos and documents. With Pinnacle's e-learning platform, you can find all guides on how to get started with Naviate. And lastly, our e-store makes it easy to buy. And you can see all of this and more on our website. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms so that you can make sure to stay up to date with everything to do with Naviate. Great, so now we can get started with the Q&A. If you do have any questions, please add it to the questions dialog. I will open that now. We do have a couple of questions already, so we can get started. What is the best way to learn Naviate? Great question. So our Naviate comes with Pinnacle Lite, where it has all of the help documentation on all of the features. Specifically for Naviate Accelerate, we also have learning paths so that you can follow along the learning path to learn how to use Naviate Accelerate. Any other questions? If you do want to learn more, please reach out to our Microdesk team. We can definitely help get you set up with a demo or documentation to learn more about the products. So don't be afraid to reach out to our team. All right, looks like that's all the questions we have. So thank you everyone for joining. I look forward to seeing you on our next webinar next month. And also, if you didn't know, we do, Microdesk does have a webinar tomorrow on BIM 360, I believe. So check that out and see you next month to learn about how to use Naviate architecture for modeling.